Think it's only normal that with the loss comes disappointment and being upset, but then again, it's another opportunity.
Alycia Parks savagely insults entire nation after epic comeback. Venus Williams shook. Melbourne nearly explodes. Welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, the only channel that doesn't just report the tennis. We dissect the drama. We expose the chaos. And today, we are absolutely drowning in the most explosive, jaw-dropping, career-defining moment in Australian Open history. If you thought tennis was just polite applause and pristine white outfits, you are living in the wrong century, my friend. What we witnessed on Court 6 in Melbourne wasn't just a tennis match. It was a war. It was a cultural clash. It was a moment so savage, so brutal, so utterly disrespectful that the entire sporting world is still picking its jaw up off the floor. We're talking about a comeback for the ages followed by the most vicious verbal takedown since, well, ever. We're talking about fans rushing barriers, security losing control, and a moment so tense that it took the defeated player herself to prevent an all-out riot. This isn't tennis anymore, folks. This is gladiatorial combat with a yellow fuzzy ball, and somebody just got thrown to the lions. So grab your popcorn, silence your phone, and prepare yourself because what I'm about to tell you is so insane, so perfectly scripted by the tennis gods themselves, that if it happened in a movie, critics would call it unrealistic. This is the story of how Alycia Parks became the most hated woman in Melbourne, how Alexandra Ela became a national hero even in defeat, and how one dropped microphone almost started an international incident. Let's rewind to Monday, January 19th, 2026. The Australian Open, the first Grand Slam of the year. The sun is absolutely scorching over Melbourne Park, temperatures soaring, but that heat is nothing compared to what's brewing on Court 6. For weeks, the tennis world has been buzzing about one name, one player, one moment that everyone has been waiting for. Alexandra Ela, the 20-year-old Filipino sensation, the pride of the Philippines, the girl who has carried an entire nation's tennis dreams on her shoulders since she was old enough to hold a racket. This isn't just another first-round match. This is history in the making. This is Alexandra Ela's main draw debut at a Grand Slam. For a country that has been starving for a tennis icon, for a nation that has never had a player break through on the biggest stages, Eala represents hope. She represents possibility. She represents the dream that yes, a Filipino player can stand among the giants of tennis. And the fans showed up to witness it. Oh, did they show up? The queue to get into Court 6 started forming before sunrise. We're talking hundreds of people, maybe thousands, snaking back through Melbourne Park, past Rod Laver Arena, all the way to the outer gates. Fans draped in the red, white, blue, and yellow of the Philippine flag. Fans wearing custom-made Eala t-shirts. Fans who had probably saved for months, maybe years, to make this trip. They didn't come to Australia for a vacation. They came for her. They came to see their queen take her throne. By the time the match started, Court 6 was transformed. This wasn't Melbourne anymore. This was Manila. This was a Philippine fortress dropped into the heart of Australia. The atmosphere was absolutely electric, crackling with energy, pulsing with anticipation. Every seat packed, people standing in the aisles. Philippine flags waving like this was the Olympics and gold was on the line. The chants of "Let's go Alex" were so loud, so unified, so deafening that you could hear them from 3 courts away. This was Alexandra Ela's moment. This was her army. This was her home court advantage in a foreign country. And standing across the net, facing this wall of noise, this tsunami of support for her opponent, was the American player Alycia Parks. Now, let me tell you about Alycia Parks. This is a woman who hits a tennis ball like she's trying to murder it. This is a player with one of the biggest serves in women's tennis, capable of firing aces at speeds that would make male players jealous. Parks is power personified. She's aggression wrapped in athletic brilliance. But here's the thing about Parks that makes her different, that makes her dangerous, that makes her absolutely magnetic to watch. She doesn't care if you like her. She doesn't play for applause. She plays to win, and if you're standing in her way, She will run you over without a second thought. But even Alycia Parks, tough as nails, hardened by years of competition, had to feel the pressure walking onto court 6 that day. She wasn't just playing Alexandra Ela. She was playing an entire nation. She was public enemy number 1 to thousands of screaming fans who wanted nothing more than to see her destroyed, humiliated, and sent packing back to America with her tail between her legs. The match began, and from the very first point, you could see Parks was rattled. The noise was getting to her. Every point Eala won was met with an explosion of cheers. Every error Parks made was greeted with celebrations like she'd just lost the entire match. The Filipino crowd wasn't just cheering for Eala. They were actively rooting against Parks. Every missed first serve was applauded. Every unforced error was cheered. This wasn't tennis etiquette. This was psychological warfare. And it was working. This was about to become a genuine safety issue. This was about to become an international incident broadcast live around the world. And that's when Alexandra Ela did something that transformed her from tennis player to genuine hero. The girl who had just lost. The girl who had just watched her Grand Slam debut dream shatter. The girl who had every right to be angry and devastated, saw what was happening. She saw her fans losing control. She saw the danger. She saw Parks walking into a potentially violent situation. And despite everything, despite the loss, despite the insult, despite all of it, Alexandra Ela made a choice. She sprinted to the microphone that Parks had dropped. She picked it up, her hands shaking, tears visible in her eyes, and she shouted over the chaos. Her voice cracked with emotion, but it was strong. It was commanding. "Stop. Please, stop," she yelled into the microphone. The crowd hesitated. Some people stopped pushing forward. They looked at their idol, confused. Why was she defending the woman who just insulted them? Why was she protecting the villain? Eala stepped toward the crowd, physically putting herself between the angry mob and her opponent, who was disappearing into the tunnel. And then she delivered a line that instantly went viral, that was replayed on every sports network around the world, that encapsulated everything noble and beautiful about sportsmanship in a single sentence. With tears streaming down her face but steel in her voice, Alexandra Ela looked at her people and said, "I don't want your country to look down on us. Behave with dignity." Absolute chills. Goosebumps. That moment right there, that is what separates good athletes from great ones. That is what separates competitors from champions. In her moment of deepest disappointment, when she had every excuse to let her emotions take over, when she could have walked away and let the chaos unfold, Alexandra Ela chose grace. She chose to represent her country the right way. She chose to be bigger than the moment. The crowd heard her words, and you could see the change ripple through the stands. The anger began to deflate. People stopped pushing forward. Some fans started crying. They realized their idol was right. They realized they were about to embarrass themselves and their nation on the world stage. They realized that no tennis match, no insult, no comment was worth losing their dignity. Slowly, the crowd began to calm down. Security was finally able to establish control. The crisis was averted. The mob dispersed back to their seats. And it was all because of a 20-year-old girl who put pride aside and did the right thing. By the time order was restored, Alycia Parks had long disappeared into the locker room, leaving behind a trail of controversy and a stadium full of people processing what they had just witnessed. But Alexandra Ela stayed. Even after everything, even after the heartbreaking loss and the chaos and the emotional exhaustion, she stayed on that court. She signed autographs for crying fans. She took selfies with people who were apologizing to her. She hugged children wearing her jersey. She told reporters later, with remarkable composure, "I know a lot of people were rooting for me. I gave it my all. I just hope the support continues." That right there is class. That right there is what a true champion looks like. The fallout from this match has been absolutely nuclear. Social media platforms crashed from the traffic. Twitter was a war zone. Instagram was flooded with hot takes. TikTok videos dissecting every second of the controversy went mega viral. The tennis world is completely divided. Half the planet is calling Alycia Parks the villain tennis didn't know it needed, the savage competitor who refused to bow to pressure and gave the crowd exactly what they deserved. They're saying Parks was responding to 2 hours of disrespectful behavior from fans who cheered her errors and celebrated her struggles. They're saying she was justified in clapping back at a hostile environment. The other half is calling Parks disrespectful, unsportsmanlike, and cruel. They're saying you never, ever insult an entire nation's fan base, especially when those fans traveled around the world to support their player. They're saying there's a line between competitiveness and cruelty, and Parks crossed it. They're calling for sanctions, for penalties, for apologies. In the post-match press conference, Parks showed zero remorse. In fact, she doubled down. Sitting at the press table with that same defiant smirk, she told reporters, "I don't know what my record is with crowds against me, but it definitely puts a fire in me. I would say I'm good when the crowds are against me." When asked if she regretted her comments, she laughed. Actually laughed. Regret? I won the match. That's all that matters. Talk about embracing the villain role. Alycia Parks has basically declared war on the concept of tennis politeness. She's thrown the unwritten rules of decorum out the window. She's made herself the most hated player in Melbourne, and judging by her reaction, she absolutely loves it. But the biggest reaction, the one that really crystallized public opinion, came from tennis royalty herself. Venus Williams, 7-time Grand Slam champion, Olympic gold medalist, and one of the most respected figures in the history of the sport, was watching. And Venus, who rarely comments on controversial moments, felt compelled to speak up. Venus Williams took to social media with a post that has now been liked millions of times. Commenting on a video clip of Alexandra Ela calming the crowd and preventing the riot, Venus wrote, "This is what a champion looks like. Not the score, but the heart. Eala, you have a fan in me. Pure class." When Venus Williams gives you her stamp of approval, when one of the greatest players ever says you're a champion, that means something. That transcends tennis. That's a validation that will follow Eala for her entire career. Venus didn't even mention Parks in her post. She didn't. When Venus Williams gives you her stamp of approval, when one of the greatest players ever says you're a champion, that means something. That transcends tennis. That's a validation that will follow Eala for her entire career. Venus didn't even mention Parks in her post. She didn't need to. The contrast was clear. So where do we go from here? What happens next in this unbelievable saga? Alexandra Ela is eliminated from the Australian Open, but somehow, impossibly, her reputation has never been higher. She lost the match but won the respect of the entire sporting world. Sponsors are reportedly lining up to sign her. Major brands want to be associated with that kind of character, that kind of grace under pressure. She's already being invited to exhibition matches, charity events, and speaking engagements. The Australian Open debut didn't go as planned on the scoreboard, but Alexandra Ela walked away from court 6 as one of the most admired young athletes on the planet. As for Alycia Parks, she advances to the second round, where she'll face 19th seed Karolina Muchova, a Czech player known for her tactical brilliance and variety. Muchova uses slices, drop shots, and incredible court craft to dismantle power players. She's basically the worst possible stylistic matchup for Parks. And you can absolutely guarantee that every single person in that stadium will be cheering for Muchova. Parks has made herself the villain of the entire tournament. Every match she plays for the rest of the Australian Open will feel like an away game in hostile territory. But here's the fascinating thing about Alycia Parks. She doesn't seem to care. In fact, she seems to thrive on it. She's embraced being the bad guy. She's leaning into the controversy. She's basically turned herself into the heel in a tennis storyline. And part of me wonders if that's exactly what she wanted all along. Some athletes crumble under negativity. Others use it as rocket fuel. Parks is clearly the latter. Tennis needs villains. Every sport does. We need heroes, but we also need someone to root against. We need controversy. We need moments that make us feel something beyond polite applause. Alycia Parks has given us that moment, and whether you love her or hate her, you're going to be watching her next match. That's power. That's relevance. That's box office. The 2026 Australian Open has barely started, and we already have the story that will define the entire tournament. We have the bagel, the comeback, the insult, the mic drop, the near riot, the peacemaker. We have a feud that could last for years. Every time Eala and Parks are in the same tournament, there will be tension. Every time they potentially meet across the net, it will be must-watch television. The tennis gods have given us a rivalry for the ages before these two players have even established themselves in the top tier of the sport. Now I need to hear from you, the Champions Tennisitics family, because this debate is going to rage for weeks, maybe months. Whose side are you on? Was Alycia Parks completely out of line, Or was she justified in responding to a crowd that spent 2 hours disrespecting her? Should she be sanctioned for those comments? Or is this just competitive fire that we should celebrate? And what about Alexandra Ela? Is she the classiest player in professional tennis right now? Does she deserve more respect than the player who actually won the match? This is going to be controversial. People are going to disagree passionately, but that's what makes it so compelling. So get down in the comments section right now and let your voice be heard. Tell us what you really think. Don't hold back. We read every single comment, and we might even feature your take in our next video. And listen, if you want to stay updated on this developing drama, if you want to know what happens when Alycia Parks walks into that stadium for her next match, if you want to follow Alexandra Ela's journey as she cements her status as one of the most beloved players in tennis, you absolutely need to be subscribed to Champions Tennisitics. This is just the beginning. This story is going to have chapters we haven't even imagined yet. So here's what you need to do right now. Smash that like button if you respect Alexandra Ela's incredible sportsmanship. Smash that subscribe button to join the fastest growing tennis community on YouTube. And absolutely demolish that notification bell so you're the first to know when we drop our next video breaking down the latest developments in this saga. We've got exclusive analysis coming. We've got expert reactions coming. We've got footage and angles you haven't seen yet. You don't want to miss a single second of this unfolding drama. Until next time, Champions Tennisitics family, remember, keep your eye on the ball, keep your passion for the game, and when things get controversial, keep coming back here for the real story. This is Champions Tennisitics, signing off, and reminding you that in tennis, the most memorable moments don't always happen when someone wins. Sometimes they happen when someone loses with grace or wins without it. See you in the next one.
I think both of us are doing actually pretty well, so I know everyone else wants to see like the matchup. But I think it's pretty good to